to continue today and tell you a few more businesses that I've been involved with, how I got involved, what I did, not for the purpose that you do the exact same business, but to just give you some creative thinking that may apply to be, something that you might want to do. So I want to go back to my real estate days. I'm now out of the real estate business and went through a bunch of stuff in my life. Bottom line is I get into a situation where we had a plumber working for us. We were installing water treatment systems. We were making gross about $7,000 a week, netting about $2,500 a week, which is very good money back then. It's not bad money today. And it didn't work for our family because my wife had to be on the phones in the evening. We have 4 children and they needed to, have her there to help her. And I was out every night. So we did that for a few months, doing very well. Everything was good. We probably did it close to a year, but it just didn't work for our family. So one of the things that happened in Pennsylvania was radon became mandatory for all real estate transactions. And we were already in the environmental testing, industry. So I decided I'm going to go, through the courses, get certified, and start trying to do these radon tests because, they have to be done. So I get the certification, and I find out at the course that there's already, in less than a year, there's already 28 companies in the business in the same market. There was 3 counties around us. And those 28, several of them were in the environmental testing business for years, were huge, had huge labs, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm sitting in the class and there's one particular guy who I became very friendly with, and he worked for one of these big companies. And he's telling me all about what they have and so on and so forth. And we got friendly and we made a friendly wager. I said, I will tell you right now that 1 year from now, even though you're all the way out, in this particular case, he was all the way out of the end of the counties, I will own your market. No way, we're already own the market. I said, you may own it on all the other stuff, but for radon testing, I will own your market and we will become the #1 radon testing company in 1 year. And he laughed at me. So our wager was, a lunch. A year later, we have lunch, he pays, and we were the #1 company. Now, how do you do that when you're no one, you have no background? So again, as I talked about in other things, we came across from an educational point of view. What everyone else was doing, besides whatever advertising they were doing, they're in the real estate offices with their brochures, lots of different brochures from all the radon companies. They're all saying their experience, selling their services, what they did. Remember, I was in real estate. I understood the mind of the real estate agent. I understood the needs of the real estate agent. So we came across from a totally different point of view. I had a friend who was a graphic artist, and I said, I need you to make me an educational booklet that would not alarm the buyer, but educate them very specifically on why these tests were done, what to expect, et cetera, et cetera. And he's a graphic artist, as I said, so he makes us this book, which we called What's the Fuss? The Truth About Radon. Well, when the buyers would walk into the real estate agencies, they would see our informational piece. And if I could open it up here a little bit, I don't know how much of this you'll be able to see, but we had all kinds of diagrams explaining what actually was, everything, how it worked, how the testing worked, and a totally non-sales pitch way. I also, as I had done before in other things, had a meeting with the entire office at the real estate company, explained why we were different. We did something very high tech back then. We would have a line where on this form, or on this booklet I mean, that they could call us on a 8-minute recorded message, hear all kinds of details, all kinds of question and answers, and they didn't need to talk to us to do that. Well, our phone's ringing off the hook. They're just listening to this recording. They're evaluating this company, and they're saying, boy, these guys are really nice. They really helped us out. As I told you, at the end of the day, we became the #1 radon company in the Delaware Valley, which is the Philadelphia area where we lived, in a year. Educating customers, helping them, blessing them with what they need, not giving them hard sales pitches. People appreciate when you do things like that. So that business went on for 2 years. Then the government steps in and says, we need to do all this other exotic testing, and we didn't have the money to buy all this equipment. So who did we sell our company to? The guy who bought us lunch bought our company out, and we left the business. So now we have to literally have a new business. And you know, we're financially set enough that we could take a little time to think it out. And my wife says to me, you know, Philadelphia's got a lot of crime. Why don't you teach crime prevention? And I looked at her and I literally laughed. I said, what do I know about crime prevention? You know, I got mugged as a kid. You know, I had a cast on and I got, you know, my UNICEF container with $50 in it. I get mugged and they take the UNICEF money. I said, I don't know anything about crime. She says, that's never stopped you before. Just figure it out. Okay. So the first thing I do is I go, again, there's no internet yet, okay? So the first thing I do is I go and I, you know, try to get every bit of information I can from the library. And you know, you're finding stuff like this. Don't walk, you know, in a parking lot where there's no lights. Don't walk down dark alleys. You know, stuff that was like, you know, okay, it was good, but you can't like build a business off of this. So I'm thinking about it, and as usual, my crazy way of thinking, I said, you know, who in the world knows more about crime than criminals? So I decided to put an ad in the newspaper, and the ad simply said, ex-cons wanted, $10 an hour, no experience, and a phone number. All I put in the ad. Phone went nuts. First thing they're all asking when they, you know, the phone was answered is, who is this really? You know, like, what is this really about? And how can you pay me $10 an hour, which was very good money back then, especially for an ex-con? So, you know, we had them come in, and my goal was to learn from the perpetrators of what they were doing, learn what they did, and learn how to counter them. How could we make a plan for a family so that they could do things so that the perpetrator couldn't do their thing? Long story short, we had 400 ex-cons working for us that year. How did I pay them $10 an hour? Because, and I'll get to the rest of this, they were selling alarm systems that were $20, not $20 a month, little tiny alarms, some pepper sprays, when they made their presentations, which I'll explain to you in a second. So we were able to, out of income, pay them, even though, you know, you would think, how are we going to pay all these people this kind of money? So here's what we did. Now we have all these ex-cons, all this information, you know, from them, but we didn't have the side of the family members, you know, being carjacked. We didn't understand how they would react. You know, if somebody came in their house, you know, with the different kids and the, you know, the layouts of the house. So I put an ad in the paper, and the ad, I don't remember exactly what it said, but it was very simple. If you would like to learn how to protect your family, your belongings, you know, named a few different crimes, call this number for a free, you know, demonstration. Didn't go as fast as I expected until it got rolling. And I'll just give you an example of one that we did. We told the family, we're going to send a real ex-convict to your house by appointment. So understand he's coming, you'll know when he's coming. He'll have a card from us so that they understood who it was. And he's going to sit with your family and he's going to discuss things with you. But the first thing he's going to do is he's going to go through a live action scene with you. So understand, no guns, no knives, don't kill the guy, don't shoot the guy, you know, but he's going to go through something with you, which everyone has to deal with. So the guy, you know, the ex-con would show up, let's say 7 o'clock at night, whole family's home. He'd walk in, he'd say hello to everybody, and he'd say, look, I'm going to give you an illustration of me breaking into your house at 2 in the morning, and then I'm going to do what I actually did, and I want you to do whatever you think you should do. But again, don't shoot me, don't come down and hit me with a baseball bat. Most of the homes up in Philadelphia were 2 stories. So they're like, they knew this was coming because we sent them information. So here's the deal. He would send them to their room, and he told them, when I slam your front door, that will be the equivalent of me breaking in. And then I'm going to do what I really did, and you guys react. You've had some time to think about this. You guys react as you think you should. But I want you to get in your beds. I want you to get under the covers. I want you to turn the lights out, and you'll know because I'll make it really loud when I slam the front door. So that's exactly what happened. And he'd slam the front door, and the family would react the way they did, and he would react the way he did. And the family almost invariably somebody was shot or killed in the family. And they were like, wow, we had no idea. I don't want to get into a whole lot of detail. So that was just one thing. We talked about many different things. The families went crazy. They loved it. And they're telling everyone in their family, you've got to get this training. You've got to get this training. It's amazing. I had no idea. And I was able to protect my house for like under $100 where we could absolutely stop this. And they would explain a little bit. So now our phones are ringing. We're not advertising anymore. At the end of our first year, we had 10,003 families that actually volunteered to, have themselves carjacked and their houses broken into and so on and so forth. Well, at the end of the year, the Lord says to me, stop. Enough. You have enough information. It was as clear as the word stop I just said to you. And I'm like, okay, so we stopped hiring all these people. We stopped doing this whole thing. And now the goal is to go into corporate America, have them let us do seminars for them in their businesses, whether it be on lunch hour or as human resources would give them a opportunity to learn, because they do lots of kind of, things like this in corporate America. Not necessarily crime seminars. So we had a very, very difficult time getting into corporate America because even though what we had done worked, I had no, criminal justice background. I wasn't a police officer. And here we're coming in saying we want to do this. So the way that we got to go from, where we were to where we needed to go was we went to the restaurants in Center City, Philadelphia, where all the big businesses were. And I said to the restaurants, listen, I'm going to bring you 20 human resource directors per week on a Monday at 2 in the afternoon after your lunch hour. And these people were the ones, just so you understand what was going on here, the human resource directors were the ones that ordered catering for all the office parties and Christmas parties and whatever else was going on. And the restaurants, there was many in the city, wanted to be the caterer. So I was introducing the restaurant owner to the human resource director. The restaurant gave them a meal, okay, so that they got a chance to get a choice of different meals that they could eat, and they got to know each other. At the same time, I was saying to the human resource director, I'm going to give you 15 minutes of the seminar while you're eating so that you can actually see what we're teaching. So in another one of the videos, I go into more detail about this. But the point is, in the first 5 weeks, literally, we had 120 a week. We had 100 human resource directors meet with the finest restaurant in the city. They loved each other. The restaurant owners got the catering, and we got to meet the owners of the human resource directors. And the bottom line is we were on the map. So now we're getting into these office buildings, and it was interesting because we went from we couldn't get anywhere, and the very, very, very first one we do, which we didn't know this, was in a building owned by the city, and we were not aware that there was you couldn't sell Girl Scout cookies, you couldn't sell Avon. There was no solicitation in this building, and we didn't know that. So we go in, we do our thing. The mayor's office finds out that this is going on. I don't know how. And I had no idea. There's 100 people sitting in the room. There's a briefcase on the desk. They're filming me do this. They have the assistant to the mayor. They have the drug czar, and they have the assistant chief of police. undercover, like they were working there, filming me so that they can put me out of business. I had no idea this. 3 weeks later, we get a knock on the door, certified mail from the mayor's office. And I'm like, I had already found out what happened. And I'm like freaking out. I'm thinking they're gonna sue us, they're gonna, whatever they're gonna do. Well, on this film, you'll be able to see a copy of the actual letter we got from the mayor's office, from Mayor Rendell, who was the mayor of Philadelphia at that time. And basically it said, by the order of the mayor, every department head in not the United States, that would have been nice, every department head in the city must have this seminar, that each and every person, which is over 9,000 employees, must come to this seminar. And he directed that directly at his department heads. So it was like, we were on the map. We were seriously on the map. Now we not only have the city behind us, but we have all these human resource people who are saying, yes, come into our company. So creativity, I'm trying to explain to you creativity. Open your mind, think about how can you bless people, how can you help people? That's what we were doing. Then we made this product, which I don't know if you can see it, it says Reality Check. We made this product, which was our own product. And we obviously filmed it and had all the people at that time from our synagogue, you know, they put chains around their neck and bandanas on. This one guy looked like he was like the most horrible guy in the world. He was so sweet. And we were acting out these different scenes. We sold tens of thousands of these videos. They cost me $2.50 to make for $20 because we were in the companies, we sold them to their friends, and so on. My point being, when you start something, just as I told you about with the Radon, have some materials that are professional. You may not be able to start exactly that way all the time, but use your brain, think about how can you help someone, and just open your mind and go for it, okay? Just go for it. Everything's great. We're doing wonderful. We moved to Florida, and we get down here. We're down here for 2.5 years, and I'm 46 years old at the time. I have a massive widowmaker heart attack. You know, doctor says to my wife, and I hear him in the emergency room, you know, you need to go in and say goodbye to him. He's not going to make it. And I'm thinking, what an idiot doctor. He says it loud enough for me to hear him, you know, that I only have a couple minutes to live. And why would he do that so I could hear him? And I'm not having any chest pain, so understand this. I know I'm having something horrible happen to me. Long story short, I lived, you know, I get flown from one hospital to the other on a helicopter, and I am disabled for a full year. I could go into a way that we made money in the meantime. I'm not going to do that right now, but the bottom line is we had recurring income that we were doing. So we had money coming in even though I wasn't able to work for that year. We like, okay, constantly we're being told by the doctors, you must have a multiple bypass. And I kept saying, no, I'm not having a multiple bypass. I'm 46, you know, what you want to do is you want to take out of my leg a perfectly good artery, stick it in my chest, you know, actually multiple arteries. And that's like saying, I'm going to take your car that has a bad hose, and I'm going to put a good hose from another part of the car in its place without finding out why that hose went bad and correcting the problem. Didn't make any sense to me. So I just refused. Well, by the end of the year, I had been through a clinical trial for something that was supposed to help. It didn't help. By the end of the year, I had already lost one doctor who said, I don't want you dying on my watch. I'm not helping you anymore. You need to find another cardiologist. So I go back to the first cardiologist, who was the one that helped me during the heart attack. And we had switched because of the clinical trial, we had to. And he says, look, you have to have a multiple bypass. Your arteries are all clogged, your blood pressure's through the roof, you have to take care of this. It runs in your genes, blah, blah, blah. So I said, you know what? At that time, I literally was popping 2 and 3 nitro pills a day for the angina pain. I said, you need to give me like 4, 5, 6 months. If I die, I die, but I want to develop something naturally. Now, at this point, This is, 2001, 2002. Internet exists. We're a lot closer to the time we're talking to you now. And I decided that I was going to do a massive amount of research into natural ingredients, find which natural ingredients had clinical trials on them that would open up the arteries, in other words, dilate the arteries, where there are ingredients that would, remove plaque, which ones would bring the blood pressure down. And one of the things I learned very quickly was that there was a Nobel Prize that was won for one particular ingredient that would drop your blood pressure and over time would help to clean out your arteries. So it was like, that's where I started. Long story short, we went through and found 43 natural ingredients, put them all together in a drink that tasted like tree bark. It was so horrible, but I wasn't trying to sell it. I wanted to save my life and not have a bypass. So we made it. We had to go to an FDA-approved lab to make it. And don't misunderstand, it's not an FDA-approved product we made because you can't get a natural product FDA-approved, but we went to an FDA-approved lab. So we made it. Long story short, 4 months later, my blood pressure's down to normal. 1 week after I started it, my angina pain stopped. I actually started on a Monday, and by Friday I had no more angina pain. I was amazed, my doctor was amazed, and it was like I never needed to do it. So I remember I had to go to an FDA-approved lab. So we had to make 400 bottles of this stuff. And I wouldn't use 400 bottles in 10 lifetimes. So I decided it worked so well for me that I would give it to all the people with cardiovascular issues at our synagogue and see what it did for them, it just helped them out. So we gave away bottles and bottles and bottles and bottles, and we're watching these people having the same kind of response. Blood pressure's dropping, it's cleaning out their arteries. It's like, Matt says to me, my son Matt says to me, Dad, you need to put this on Google. And I heard of Google, this is 2001, 2002, they were still pretty new. So I said, well, what's Google? And of course he laughed at me and, he explained it, and we went on to Google. We had a website, he made a website, and it was really, it was very interesting what happened in the beginning, because we had all these testimonies, from people we knew, and you would think this thing would take off like crazy, all natural, lowers your blood pressure, blah, blah, blah. So it didn't take off right away. It took off, but we had to work at it for a while, like so many things. We had to improve our website and so on. So now here we are, 13, 14 years later. We've since sold the company to our son. I'm now full-time Messianic Jewish rabbi at a Messianic synagogue here in the Brandon area of Florida near Tampa. And he's got tens of thousands of customers, that buy from him month after month after month. The business went very, very well. We had to learn, we had to develop, we needed to do all the things you have to do, to develop a business. So I'm telling you all this because there was a need for me. So a lot of times, and this is very true, you hear about passion. I had a passion not to have a multiple bypass, and I would prefer to do something natural. So interestingly, what happened is not only did this stuff work so well for me, but in 2001 is when I had the heart attack. In 2004, I come down with acute myelogenous leukemia, and I was given 2 weeks to live. And it's like, man, what's going on here? So I have to go to Moffitt, and I got to get this taken care of. But as I said, they're saying to me, you need to go see your cardiologist because we're going to stick these tubes that are very, the chemo is very cardiotoxic. I need to send you back to your cardiologist to make sure that, your arteries can handle this, or, we don't want to kill you with the chemo. So go back to the cardiologist. It does another angiogram, where they go in your groin and they run up your arteries, and they have camera and they're looking, and right in the middle of the procedure, and you're awake during this, doesn't hurt or anything, he stops the procedure, takes off his gloves, makes all these phone calls, calls all of his students to teaching hospital, down into the room, and he's saying to them, there must have been 10 of them, look at these two screens and tell me what you see that's unusual here. So the one screen is me live with the live picture of me. And the other one of me is 2.5 years earlier, you know, when I had the heart attack and all the blockages and all the arteries that were clogged and so on and so forth. He said, what do you see? And they're all like, how is that possible? It's not possible. You can't, there's no drugs to get all the gook out of the arteries, all the plaque. What's going on? And he says to them by name, he says, this guy told me that he was going to make a product, which he did, natural product, and he called it Tikva. And I can tell you, you don't have to believe it works or not. Here's the 2 pictures, all clogged on one side, totally like whistle clean 2.5 years later. It took 4 months to get his blood pressure down. Now, I do want to say that I was 46 at the time. You know, I'm sorry, I was 50 years old at the time when this happened. He says it took 2.5 years to get his blood pressure down. And, you know, look at this. So they're all amazed. Obviously, I was able to move forward, but my point of telling you this is this. I had a need. There was passion in me not to have this bypass. I did the research, did the homework, got a couple doctors involved. There's a ton of information, ton of clinical trials. We made the product. It worked, made a huge business out of it, you know, multi-million-dollar business out of it. Working from our home Monday to Thursday. We didn't work Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. And my point with you is this. If you have passion, you use your head, you try to help, you will see literally that you can do amazing, amazing things in your world. Just have the guts to do it, think it through, work it through, do it methodically, get help if you need it, and so on and so forth. Now, I do want to give you a little disclaimer here. As I said, we sold the company to our son, who on this website, you will see the product called Tikva, and it is for sale on this website. Our synagogue does get a donation if you purchase from us, on this website. You don't pay any more for it than you would if you found it directly online. So I want you to know that you're not only helping him and helping our synagogue, but the stuff is amazing, and we've had amazing results. So I hope you'll look into it. I hope that helped you, and I thank you and hope you have a blessed day.